In layman's terms, explain briefly what you came across in your research.
Hi, Laura. Yes, thanks for having me. So this was actually a study. The data that I cited is actually Pfizer's own data. They had submitted it to the Japanese government. And what's interesting is, unlike the FDA in the United States and Health Canada, the regulatory agency in my country, the Japanese government requires additional data that our health agencies do not require. And included in their data package was results of a biodistribution study. So this is a study that looks at where the vaccine goes in the body. Now, with traditional vaccine technologies, what we know is that when the vaccine is injected, in this case into the shoulder muscle, normally the vaccine would stay in the shoulder muscle. But in this case, this study indicated that as little as 25% of the dose remains in the shoulder muscle. The rest of the dose seems to distribute systemically throughout the body, seeding all kinds of tissues. And so there's a couple of concerns. There was a peer-reviewed study that demonstrated that the spike protein that the vaccine causes our bodies to manufacture gets distributed throughout the bloodstream. But probably of even greater concern for me is this evidence that the vaccine itself, which carries the little blueprint for the spike protein from SARS coronavirus, that goes throughout our body and seeds all kinds of tissues, including at quite high concentrations, the ovaries. So, for example, in the ovaries, one of the things that I noted is that after 48 hours, if you look at the amount of the vaccine left in the shoulder, we actually end up, females end up with about 7% of that dose in the ovaries, which is of concern. And of course, what happens is if the vaccine is seeding a tissue like the ovaries, this is providing the genetic blueprint to the cells in the ovaries, meaning that those cells will now start manufacturing the spike protein. And we're also starting to learn that the spike protein itself can be toxic to the body. And as we generate antibodies against the spike protein, if we have cells, for example, in the ovaries that are now starting to express the spike protein on their surface, our own antibodies are going to be attacking our own cells.
Okay, I want to ask, so people understand this. You've been fact-checked out the wazoo, okay, for what you've read and said. Now, and they wrote in the AP, experts say they found nothing of concern from the same study. One expert claimed that the spike became undetectable by 14 days after the first dose of the vaccine. After the second, they couldn't detect the spike protein in the blood of any of the participants because the participants had all generated anti-spike antibodies. They say you're cherry-picking data. Doctor, your response, quickly.
Yeah, so first of all, again, what they are actually highlighting is a secondary concern of mine. My primary concern is that the spike protein that's generated by the vaccine is actually designed to stay anchored to the surface of our cells. But the problem is, if this vaccine is being distributed throughout the body and it's seeding tissues like our adrenal glands and our lungs and the intestines and the spleen and all kinds of different tissues, then we're going to cause cells all throughout our body to express essentially this flag on the surface, the spike protein. And then indeed, as we start mounting an antibody response, which takes about a week to 2 weeks and will peak about 3 weeks, yes, that's going to try and clear the spike protein from the body. But the problem is the spike protein is now on our own cells. So it's going to be killing cells in our body. And also, just to talk about the spike protein.
We got we have a hard break, Dr. Bridle, but this is so important. We will have you back, and we'll continue to ask tough questions. Thank you.